Thank you guys for tuning in. In this video, I'd just like to just read a section from the Apocryphal Acts of John about the mystery and the light of the cross. Now, this mystery of the cross, we can find in our Bibles. Remember, the Apostle Paul himself said, the gospel is a mystery. And this mystery is becoming unveiled as it is written in more blatantly in the Apocryphal Acts of John and some of these extra biblical texts that we're finding in the corners of the internet and all that. So we're just going to read this section out of the Apocryphal Acts of John, and I'm just going to talk about it. We'll just get to the point and just read. And this is pretty much where we are in context. Jesus is being crucified. And John ran off to the Mount of Olives to weep. And while he was weeping to be alone in a cave of what was happening from the crucifixion, Yeshua appeared to him in spirit, and he told him the mystery of the light of the cross. Now, let's talk about this mystery, guys. This is not it's a mystery that we don't find in our Bibles. We're making our own doctrines and all this kind of stuff. No, guys, the whole point of our Bibles, the whole point of our existence is to bring forth good figs. Now, what did Yeshua say? He said, behold the fig tree, when it bring forth tender leaves, you know summer is nigh. Now, do we understand what that means? It means when we walk, when the light of the cross comes first shining, that's the fig leaves that Adam and Eve put on to cover their shame. It's the want. It's just the beginning of that want and that virtue to overcome our sin nature. Okay? This is the mystery of the cross. This is the mystery of our whole existence. So we're seeing this stuff come to life. So yeah, we could assume summer is nigh. And it's no coincidence. We just had that eclipse that represents a wedding ring. And the moon going over the sun. And all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing. We're amazing the times we're living in. And so this is a more conservative narrative of uncovering the mystery of the cross. And I just want to share it with you. And I just want to share some insights. And I really pray in Jesus' name that this is just a sharpening and edification. And Yah could be a vessel into my voice and in the spirit. So, all right. We're on page 35 on your PDF. If you want to follow along. Okay. And I want to invite you to read this stuff in context. A chapter or two before, a chapter or two after. It's really great stuff. Right before this, actually, we have another rendition of the Hymn of the Cross, which is a dance and song Yeshua did right before his crucifixion with the apostles on the Mount of Olives. Amazing revelation in this, and we have at least 3 versions of this account in text of this song of Yeshua scattered throughout the apocryphal literature. Really amazing. But that's for another video. All right, so let's get to it. So this is John speaking of Yeshua in context when Yeshua just appears to him on the Mount of Olives while he's getting crucified all the way out Golgotha. So this is happening like transcendent in spirit and in supernatural. Here we go. Verse 98 here. And when he had said this, he showed me a cross of light brought to a fixed shape, and around the cross a great crowd, which had no single form. And in the cross was one form, and the same likeness. Okay, later in the text, he describes what the imagery of what we're seeing here in more detail. He does explain this parable, okay? And I saw the Lord himself above the cross, having no shape, but only a kind of a voice, yet not that voice which we knew, but one that was sweet and gentle, the voice of God. Kind of, perhaps maybe like Elijah heard, that kind, gentle, whispered voice that we read in the book of Kings. And that sweet voice said to me, John, there must be one man to hear these things from me, for I need one who is ready to hear. The cross of light is sometimes called Logos. We're going to move here. The cross of light is sometimes called Logos by me for your sakes. Sometimes mind, sometimes Christ, sometimes a door, sometimes a way, sometimes bread, sometimes a seed, sometimes resurrection, sometimes Son, sometimes Father, sometimes Spirit, sometimes life, sometimes truth, sometimes faith, sometimes grace. And so it is called these things for men's sake. And this is exactly what we see in the Gospels, right? Really beautiful. But what it truly is, as known in itself and spoken to you, is this. It is the delimitation of all things and the strong uplifting of what is firmly fixed out of what is unstable, and the harmony of wisdom. Now, when wisdom is in harmony, there are those on the right, those on the left, powers, authorities, principalities, even demons, activities, threatenings, passions, calamities, Satan, and the inferior root from which the nature of transient things proceed. Right? So, I mean, these are words to really meditate on your own, but what he's saying here is that the ways of the flesh are transcendent and inferior, and the ways of the Spirit we stand firm, right? We can kind of compare it to building our foundation on the rock and not on sand, but this is kind of a more spiritual implication of that. Okay, so let's continue reading where we see the number 99. This cross then, which has made all things stable through the Logos and separated off what is transitory and inferior, then has poured itself into everything, is not that wooden cross which you will see when you go down from here, nor am I the man who is on the cross, I whom now you do not see, but only hear my voice. Remember, Jesus is being crucified in the natural while this is happening, while he's having this conversation with John in the supernatural, all the way a mile off on the Mount of Olives. And he says, I was taken to be what I am not. I who am not, what for the many I am. But what they say of me is mean and unworthy of me. Since then the place of rest is neither to be seen nor told, much more shall I, the Lord of this place, be neither seen nor told. The multitude around the cross. Now here he starts explaining the parable that we read in the beginning of the text, okay? And when you think about it, it really makes sense. And this is stuff we should really be paying attention to. And we're going to talk about this stuff, okay? So the multitude around the cross that is not of one form is the inferior nature. Pretty much, I think what they're saying is it's our flesh nature. As for those whom you see in the cross, if they do not have a single form, not every member of him who came down has yet been gathered together. So here we see a reference. I think this gives us insight into God's order of salvation. Yes, we're all saved by grace. We're all saved until the day of redemption. Okay, this doesn't mean we're not saved. But I think this is referring to our I being single, right? He says, as for those whom you see in the cross, that's his children. That's all of us who are sanctified, who he chose from the foundation of the world. Okay, those outside the cross are the inferior, is all the flesh. As for those who you see in the cross, if they do not have a single form, So this must be relating to our eye being single. And if it's dark, how great is that darkness? This is the bringing forth of fig leaves, the bringing forth of the fig tree, because we know the fig tree represents that wrestle we have to overcome our sin nature, which we cannot do without the blood and wood of Jesus' grace, right? So as for those who you see in the cross, if they do not have a single form, yet not every member of him who came down has yet been gathered together. So perhaps there will some that will be saved whose eye has not been single. They're pretty much have stopped at the wood of the cross and just are content with being saved by grace. And that's fine. But when human nature is taken up, and the race that comes to me and obeys my voice, then he who now hears me shall be united with it, and shall no longer be what he now is. That's our glorified light bodies. Guys, I'm not saying I have all the answers to this text. This is deep prophecy into the times we're living in now and should be studied. Okay? So, let's read this sentence again. But when human nature is taken up, and the race that comes to me and obeys my voice, then he who now hears me shall be united with it, and shall no longer be what he now is. So this could be like a first fruits type of resurrection. We really don't know. It's a mystery, but let's continue reading. But shall be above them as I am now. Okay? For so long as you do not call yourself mine, I am not what I was. But if you hear me, you also who hear shall be as I am, and I shall be as I was. When, and then the text gets missing. Now, what he's talking about, for as long as you do not call yourself mine, okay, let's relate this to the Gospels. If we're ashamed of him, he's ashamed of us, right? I am not what I was. So he's talking about who he was before Jesus manifested in the flesh to us, who he was, the Proverbs 8 revelation, right? He was wisdom. He is Elohim, So for as long as you do not call yourself mine, so those who are ashamed of him, I am not what I was. But if you hear me, you also who hear shall be as I am, and I shall be as I was. Okay? So this is talking about our glorified light bodies, our redemption. Okay? Now, people could lead on and it's just saying, all right, well, what about those who have stopped at the wood of the cross? Are they not saved? No, they're absolutely saved. That's the purpose of the wood of the cross. Are they good? Are they not going to be glorified in the light bodies? I don't know. This stuff is a mystery to be studied. I think they definitely will be. But here he's talking about those who love him and do his commandments. And I just want to take you guys to the book of the prophet Elijah, the order of Enoch, this text that we've uncovered in the corners of the internet that many, it's really like the restoring of the Acts 2 church, which really started in Enoch and in the days of Enoch, because Enoch transcended into the light of the cross. And we're going to see parallels to Enoch, but without getting into too many rabbit holes. What I think this text is saying is a lot of people read that order of Enoch and say, this is orthodoxy, we're saved by grace, and this is not biblical, and it doesn't have to be that, all these orthodox rules, but they're misconceiving the text. Actually, all through our Bibles, we're called to be away from the people of the world and to live amongst each other. We are called to be called out assemblies. And when you read your New Testament, all throughout the letters of Paul, there's a called out assembly of the Corinthians, called out assembly of Ephesus. Yes, the believers separate themselves and live together. And we kind of lost these things in our society today. But people think, well, there's all these rules, and if you don't do them, then you're not holy, you're cast out. But that's not what the order of Enoch was saying. The order of Enoch says, yes, there on the surface, there seems to be these rules, but I think this is what this text is also covering. Look, If you want to decide to stop at the wood of the cross, then let them stop at the wood of the cross. If you feel like it's too orthodoxy, then live in the holiness that you're comfortable with. That's what these say. Then let them live in their own sect. Okay? Let them live in their own gate, as we could perceive through the book of Revelation how it's going to be. And if there's those who want to be holier, simply out of the love in their hearts, they just want to be holier and move forward, they feel like they can move forward, then let them move forward. And let them go in their own sect. So there's not striving and contention and corruption. And perhaps that's what I think this text is getting into in a very broad, general way. Okay? Because we do find in the kingdom, there's going to be, there's the courts of the kingdom, there's the temple of the kingdom, there's the outer courts. There's the outer courts where the heathen who are not even saved are still going to be saved and they can walk around. It's not like we're all going to be living in the same place. We're going to be given in accordance to our own righteousness. That's my understanding of the prophecies. Of course, we won't really know until these things actually come to pass. But I think this is what this text is kind of covering in a very general way. Okay? All right, so I'm going to keep reading because this is like a lot of me, I don't know. For as long as you do not call yourself mine, I am not what I was. But if you hear me, you also who hear shall be as I am, and I shall be as I was. So we are called to do the works Jesus did, and even greater, right? We're in the John 16 territory here. And then he will be, and as we will become who Jesus was when he walked the earth 2,000 years ago, he will be who he was since the beginning of creation, the Elohim, the Proverbs 8, right? The Holy Spirit. So let's continue reading. Let's move up. Sadly, the text gets fragmented. Very frustrating. Therefore, ignore the many and despise those who are outside the mystery. For you must know that I am holy with the Father, and the Father with me. Now, I don't think this means we should be despising and separate ourselves for those who want to stop at the wood of the cross. Or that's just where they're at now. I think because that's not necessarily scriptural, because we're all supposed to love each other and build each other up, and it kind of open the borders of our hearts and accept that, okay, people are at certain spots, other people are at other spots. We still have to get along, as long as we're not corrupting and tearing each other down. Then that branch has to get severed and we separate each other. But I think this is really talking about separating ourselves from people of the world, from people who are not saved and are still walking in the flesh, right? Therefore, ignore the many and despise those who are outside the mystery, for you must know that I am holy with the Father, and the Father with me. So we apply all of this stuff to our Bibles, and then we can understand it, okay? So then I have suffered none of those things which they will say of me, even that suffering which I showed to you, and the rest in my dance. I will that it be called a mystery. For what you are, you see, I have shown it to you. But what I am is known to me alone, and to no one else. So let me have what is mine. What is yours you must see through me. But to see me truly is, as I said, not possible, except for what you are able to know, being a kinsman. Okay, so we're only scratching the surface of the depths of his mystery, the depths of his truth. This is really something to read on your own and meditate on. Read slowly and meditate on it. Let it soak in your soul, okay? Let it soak in, meditate on it, curl up with it, and let it renew your spirit, renew your heart, renew our minds. Okay, this is the purpose of the word. This is how we have our eye be single. You hear that I suffered, yet I suffered not. And that I suffered not, and yet I did suffer. And that I was pierced, yet I was not lashed. That I was hanged, and yet I was not hanged. That blood flowed from me, yet it did not flow. And in a word that they say of me, I did not endure. But what they do not say, those things I did suffer. Now what these are, I secretly show to you, for I know that you will understand. You must know me then, the torment of the Logos, the piercing of the Logos, the blood of the Logos, the wounding of the Logos, the hanging of the Logos, the suffering of the Logos, the fastening of the Logos, the death of the Logos. And so I speak, having made room for the man. And so I speak, having made room for the man. Now, the man, he's talking about his incarnation in the flesh. The first then that you must know is the Logos. Then you shall know the Lord. And thirdly, the man and what he has suffered. So first, we must know our Bibles. And then we will know the Lord. And then we will know Jesus, who walked the earth 2,000 years ago, and what he had suffered. So it's an interesting timeline, kind of pattern or outline he puts us to obtain understanding. Know the Word, then we know the Lord, and then we'll know Jesus. And that absolutely makes sense when we think about it, right? Because the non-believers, the Jews missed the Messiah because they didn't know the Word, because the ways of man got in the way, the rabbinic laws got in the way. And so know the Word, and then you'll know the Lord, and then you'll know the man who walked 2,000 years ago and what he suffered. So it's really profound. And we're almost done here. And this is interesting. This last paragraph, I think, has prophetic implications. And we could even see Enoch in Jesus, in his taking up. So let's hear this. When he had said these things to me, and others which I know not how to say as he wills, he was taken up, without any of the multitude seeing him. Now, when we look at the book of Yashar chapter 3, Enoch was taken up in the same way. In the exact same way. Now John is talking about he went down to Golgotha, where after Jesus was crucified, and going down, I laughed at them when they all told me what they had said about him, all the terrible things, because John ran off in the crucifixion. He couldn't handle it, and this is the narrative we're hearing. And so when he returned, I guess the apostles they said this about him, they said that about him, and all of this. And he's like, and I laughed at all them when they told me what they said about him, and I held this one thing fast in my mind, that the Lord had performed everything as a symbol and a dispensation for the conversion and salvation of man. So John saw the prophetic implications of it all, and the Ecclesiastes 1:9 and 3:15 factor of Yah's doing everything Yah does has prophetic implications, and there's just a bigger picture. And when we see that bigger picture, when we could see afar off, we can firmly stand and not be moved by the ways of man, by the ways of the flesh, and not be moved by the world. So, I don't know, I just want to inspire you guys. This is an awesome text. We read an account of this in that PDF we've uncovered recently from the corners of the internet. Very amazing stuff. I just pray in Jesus' name that people can receive this, and those who have ears to hear, let them hear. And I just want to encourage you guys to read this stuff on your own. It's really awesome, very edifying. Okay, guys, thank you for tuning in. God bless you.